الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. All praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him, ask for guidance, forgiveness. We seek protection in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the malice of our souls, from our evil actions. Whomsoever Allah guides, none can misguide, and whomsoever Allah misguides, none can bring her back to guidance. Now bear witness that there is no deity. There is no deity to be worshipped except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has no partner in this dominion. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no partner. And the Rasul Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the final and the last messenger until Yawm al-Qiyamah. We'll begin with an ayah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. O you have believed, be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and die not. Fear Allah as He's deserving of, according to His maqam, according to His greatness, His majesty, being the creator. And die not except in the utter state of submission. Submission is what? We live our lives by the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We make Allah the reference point of our desires being subdued to Allah's guidance. our systems, our laws, they go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another ayah, Allah says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم يغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. O you have believed, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to speak that is appropriate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you do that, Allah will amend your affairs and forgive you your sins. And whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger has certainly attained the greatest achievement. So may Allah make us one of those that die in a state of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. SubhanAllah, as human beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has built many relationships. Many relationships. You know, we have relationship, our friends, we have relationship with our mothers, our parents, our siblings, our co-workers. When you think about it, life is about managing relationships. And subhanAllah, with any relationship, you may have friction. And especially the rights and responsibilities. And obviously the human being, you know, with the greedy nature, with many human beings, we want to basically get the better end of that relationship. We want to get the better end of that deal, subhanAllah. So amongst those relationships, there's a relationship that's very important. It is of critical interest, especially living in the West. I'm talking about no other relationship than the relationship with our children. And subhanAllah, you know, if you believe this deen is complete, al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum. If Allah has basically completed this deen, then He must have given you guidance for every relationship, and obviously a relationship of parents and their children. You know, growing up, I grew up in the West, and I remember my mom would only tell me two things. My mom would say, be a good guy. I don't know what that really meant, but according to her definition. And secondly, she asked me to pray. And subhanAllah, just I'm being vulnerable here and sharing. At one point, I didn't pray in my life. I wasn't convinced. As a Muslim growing up, I've been living here since I'm 34 today, since 10. I wasn't convinced with my mom's, why did she want me to pray? Seriously, I was like, I told my mom, I'll pray when I feel like praying. That was me about like 15 years ago. I say, I'll pray when I feel like praying. Don't force me to pray. Don't force me to pray. And subhanAllah, I think I see youth here today. I think many youth, they can probably relate to this. Especially growing up in the West. You are growing up with it, you're watching TV. It's not calling to Islam. You go to school, your friends are not calling to Islam. You come back home, you see your parents, unfortunately many of us are not living according to Islam, being our priority, but then say, you gotta pray. You gotta pray, brother. Son, pray. Sunday. And you're like, things are not adding up. I'm surrounded by ideas. I'm surrounded by people. I'm surrounded by a system that's taking me away. It's taking me away from Salah. But my mom tells me, and my dad tells me, every time they see me, pray. And obviously, we know sometimes it's not always in a very nice way. It's like, if you don't pray, you're not going to get this. If you don't pray, no video games for you. If you don't pray, I'm not going to give you your little budget allowance that you have. So this is what this is what we're used to. It wasn't to go, wallahi, it's not very effective with me. May Allah bless my parents, it strengthened them. It didn't work. I actually got into Islam on my own later on in my life, but I still cherish my parents and I reward them. But today the question is, how can we be effective? When we're living here, and many of your parents, and many of your youth, I think all the youth will say, you know what, bro, jazakallah khair, bro. I think my parents really needed advice. And the parents are like, I think I can use some help. Even like right now, I have a son that's 5.5. It's a bit tough dealing with them, especially when you don't have the infrastructure. The schooling is not so affordable. Sending your children to school is a big disaster, subhanAllah. What are the problems they're facing? The problem they're facing, number one, is identity crisis. You don't know who you are. Are you Canadian? Are you a Muslim? Are you somebody else? Are you half Canadian, half Muslim? Are you 90% Canadian and 10% Muslim? Or are you 90% Muslim and 10% Canadian? Who are you? It's a very fundamental question that every human being needs to understand and be content with. Be content with. When you're not content with who you are, you don't lack confidence. You lack ambition. You're not going to have a great time dealing with people around you, because you've not solved the most important question. You never answered it. Who are you? And subhanAllah, this is the identity crisis. Secondly, when our youth today, that was an issue, you could say, number one issue. Today, the second issue, the gender fluidity. When you were going in school and you're dealing, and people are asking you the question, hey, what do you think about that? Or what does Islam say about the Muslims? Do Muslims accept the gays and the lesbians and this and that? And they're putting you on a spot. Putting you on a spot. So it's very hard. It's very hard, subhanAllah. And all of that results in having no purpose. When you don't have a purpose, you're not going to push yourself. When you don't have a purpose, you're not going to have the motivation day in and day out, be the best version of yourself. If you don't have purpose, where are you going? It's like you're driving. I don't know where I'm driving to, bro. Am I going to Montreal? Am I going to Calgary? Am I going to Thunder Bay? I don't know, because I don't have a purpose. So today it's a responsibility. The Prophet, we all are shepherds, and we have responsibility, and we were going to be asked on the Day of Judgment about our responsibility. And one of that responsibility is what? How do we deal with our children? And subhanAllah, and I understand the challenges from the parent perspective. Right now that the generation is completely different. The world has never seen such a overhaul. Go back to 30 years ago, you had no social media, there are no cell phones. The life has completely become virtual, and people are they're on social media. They don't even talk to each other. You got 10 kids sitting in the room, each one are text messaging to each other, or they make whatever they're doing on different apps that they have. It's a very different world, and we need to come in terms with that. We need to come in terms with that and recognize we're living a different time. It's like before, back in the day, you may have had a little bit of gap, and let's say 100 years ago, 200 years ago, the parents their advice was relevant. I'm not saying advice is not relevant today. It's like, how do you basically pick the right style to make it relevant? And that is a question we need to really ask. So I'm going to go back to the Quran and go back to the wise men, Luqman alayhi salam. He's not a prophet. That's what most people say. Look how he dealt with his son. And you'll notice something. No, I'm just going to read the transition because we don't really have much time here. Look what he said. Luqman, the first thing he said, he didn't say, come son, pray. Pray. And unfortunately what happened with some of us is when we're talking about the deen, we are very, we pick and choose what we want to teach our children. We pick and choose. When it comes to, respecting your parents, mashallah, it has a high honor. It's a high degree. But we emphasize that. And if I'm a child, I remember this with myself, I felt like, you're using Islam, bro. I love you, Dad, but you know what you're doing? You're using Islam for your own purpose. I don't see you doing that with every aspect of Islam. Well, I don't see you basically giving back to the community as much as you should. I don't see you basically, sometimes not backbiting. I don't see, right? So these are the things that every parent, right? You're like, okay, well, why are you picking and choosing? Right? So if you're going to be picking and choosing, guess what? Your children will be picking and choosing, even if they're Islamic. Why? That's what they see you do. Right? If they're like, I like this aspect of Islam, oh no, I want the son to respect me. Let me just hammer down all the ahadith about that. Just keep, or all the ayahs that I know in the Quran about that. But it seems like a very, very rational thing to do, because who is it benefiting? You see, we're selfish. We're trying to benefit ourselves. But look what Luqman does, how does he deal with the whole situation? He tells him, and remember, he said to his son, while advising, oh my dear son, never associate, I'll just give you the ayah, Ya bunayya la tushrik billah, inna shirk la dhulmun azim. He started with what? Do not do shirk against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at the wisdom of Luqman al-Islam. Because what happens if your child is not doing shirk against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What's the number one priority? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When what does Allah command them to do? Is to respect their parents. In a very high degree. So you, instead of going and just enforcing, no son, you gotta respect your parents. It's a fard from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's one of the biggest fard and biggest obligation after doing shirk. You see where I'm coming from? Look how he starts. Look how many of us start. And the second point within this ayah, I think today maybe I have to do a part 2 for this. The shirk is the most, because right now I can literally ask many of the parents here. Unfortunately, I don't want to test you here. If you were to ask, what are the false gods? The children, like if you tell your son, do not commit shirk, what is he going to be like? I don't get what you're talking about, man. Like, what is this? What's shirk? I don't stand in front of no idol. Like, I don't get your language. We're not able to translate. What does that really mean? Dude, you can do an exercise. Go home and tell your son, don't commit shirk. And see what happens. You're like, okay, I'm not committing shirk. What else you want from me? Right? We need to delve into it and understand what is shirk. And understand what is the manifestation of shirk today. Today is about what? You're doing shirk against yourself. You take your desire as your ilah. It's all about the deen of freedoms. Ad-deen of hurriya. It's all about me. Myself, I, and me. Me. Okay, if you're not able to deconstruct the shirk that they're having today, you're not getting it. It's no change. If you want to be able to change, you need to be able to deconstruct. Ya bunayya is very beautiful. The way it addresses it, that's another, there's so much to talk about. When he's addressing his son, he's addressing it, but you need to be addressing it and make him understand that when you follow your desires, oh son, in that life, in the dunya, I'm not even talking about the akhirah, you will be unsuccessful in achieving content. You'll be unsuccessful in being the best version of yourself. You'll be unsuccessful in your maximizing your ambition in life. Why? Look at this. When you basically make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala your primary concern, what happens? What happens is that now Allah is basically restraining your desires. Look at him in the West. When you look at the CEOs and all the successful people, what are they doing? They have built systems. They're waking at 5 a.m. and they're doing all of this stuff. Why? Because they want to be the best CEO. They want to make the most money. They want to have the most influence. Now you teach your son, hey son, you want to be successful, and the biggest dhulm you can do is what? Shirk. And you need to make them understand and deconstruct the worldview, because I'm telling you, many of us and many of our children, what do they have? Their worldview, they are liberal worldview. They think what they do is based on cost benefit. They're not thinking about the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not like, oh yeah, what did Allah, what was the last time you saw your son? May Allah bless you if you had that. Before I take an action, what did Allah say? What did the Rasulullah say? We don't have that. They will move because they see benefit. And they don't move and they see harm. That whole way of thinking is not Islamic. It's not Islamic. It's a very liberal way of thinking. We need to go back and know, son, like, what do they do? It's based on convenience, it's based on desires. How do you deconstruct that idea? That is your challenge, and that is my challenge. And for that, you need to be educated, and I need to be educated, and we need to have people who are capable of educating. And by the way, when you go to many of the imams, they've quit. They find it very, very difficult to mobilize and to revive our youth, because they don't know how to deal with them. They don't know how to deal with these questions. So everybody here, inshallah, as parents, you need to make a commitment to yourself and the children here to learn and understand the deen. And even though the people who basically learn Islam, they may have learned it in the traditional way, which is all great, but you need to be able to translate that to your son, who doesn't understand a lot of the stuff you learn. How do you basically speak to him? How do you deconstruct his wrong ideas that he has about life? Because why? What's the first thing the Quran said? Do not do shirk. Once you fix that, what's going to happen? Is he going to respect you? Is he going to love you? Is he going to obey you? But most importantly, he's going to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what you want. Do you not want that? It's not what I want a son. I think back home, most people, they want a son that prays, is dutiful to their parents. But when the son comes back and tells the dad, you know what, the mortgage is not the right opinion, the dad's like, get out of my face. When the son comes back and says, I want to work for Islam, get out of my face. What happened to right? Because you built your own version of Islam on your son. You didn't want him to become a proper Muslim that basically does what Allah wants him to do. So it's convenient-based Islam. Wallahi, like, if you are a sincere parent, if I'm a sincere parent, I want my son to basically hold me accountable, because Allah will hold me accountable on the Day of Judgment. Did you not? I know it's hard. Many of the fathers, they don't really take that from their sons. You know what? You don't know much, man. I remember when I got a little bit excited, as you know, and I was very like, intense. Maybe they'll forgive me for my intensity. And I used to go, and my parents were like, no, you just learned Islam 2 days ago. You can't speak to me like that. Wallahi, now I've been learning Islam for the last 10 years, but this is what I got. Right? So, as parents, we need to humble ourselves. As children, we need to humble ourselves. Say, wallahi, like, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to put my nose down when Allah has spoken. This is how we think about Islam. If you are a father, if you are a mother that basically puts her head down and puts her nose down for La ilaha illallah, guess what? Guess what? Your children will too. Right? This is alive. Subhanallah. Look at Umar ibn Khateeb. When the woman basically from the back said, Umar, you're wrong. And what did Umar say? The woman is right. And the Khalifatul Muslimin, the strongest man, said, I'm wrong. That is the level of humility we need to have with our children. Subhanallah. So may Allah guide us, and may Allah strengthen us, and understand and educate yourself about the isms and the false gods of today, and learn how to deconstruct them within the minds of your children. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. I know we're at time right now, subhanallah. Just to really summarize the khutbah, we spoke about how, number one, that there's a relationship in Islam, in humanity. As people, we have relationship. And one of the most relationship is a relationship as parents to our children. And I only spoke about one advice of Luqman alayhi salam. And the advice is what? That we need to basically, we're not here to construct a child based on our own image and our own version of Islam based on our conveniences. Rather, we want to teach our children to become a people who basically truly understand Islam. Even though we want to have those children, they're better than us in many ways. They're more practicing. You see that today. You see that today, subhanAllah. And you want to be the one that's supporting them. But for you to do that, for me to do that, I need to be able to deconstruct the false ism, so they don't fall into the shirk. And if you're not able to do it, you need to be very vulnerable and say, you know what, if we have a community here, we have brothers and sisters here, you know what, Brother Ahmed, Brother Ashad, and the team, I don't know what to do. It's completely okay to say that. It's completely okay to say that. I do not know how to deal with my children. I do not know how to basically deconstruct and make them, get out of shirk. Because many of us, the shirk is not with the false idol, it's with ourselves, it's with our desires. We've taken our desires as ilah. Our children have taken the desire of the ilah. Our children have taken the idea of freedom as something that's most sanctified, even though Allah should be most sanctified. Right? SubhanAllah. So it's okay. And the one action I have for you, inshallah, we do have an event coming up this Monday that's talking about all of the issues. We have speakers talking about freedoms, LGBTQ++. We're going to have a flyer outside. Inshallah, we're going to have talking about the issue of feminism, which is very, subhanAllah, the issue of how you worship Allah. These are things you need to get familiar with. It's not, by the way, it's not a lot. It's not a lot. Once you get comfortable talking about these things, inshallah, or direct people who can deal with this, then inshallah you can restore the iman. I know everybody here wants their children to be better than them. I know everybody here wants their children to be basically have their heart filled with la ilaha illallah of Allah and His Messenger. I want everybody here, their children to basically pull them in Jannah and become sadaqah jariyah for them. I want everybody here, we don't want our children to fall into the liberal ideology and the false isms. And may Allah basically preserve our, us and our children and guide them to the straight path that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah make us of those that Allah is pleased with and we're pleased with Him. Ameen ya Rabb. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our children that become the beacon of light for this ummah. And may Allah make ourselves as examples that representing Islam and the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every aspect of our life. Ameen ya Rabb. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen us to overcome the trials of ease and difficulty. Ameen ya Rabb. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite us with our children, so we're happy and laughing. Ameen ya Rabb. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do not make our children be trials in this dunya. Ameen ya Rabb. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise our status in the dunya and akhirah. Ameen ya Rabb. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of the muttaqeen, as-siddiqeen, as-salihin. Ameen ya Rabb. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us one of those are the ghuraba of the end of times. Ameen ya Rabb. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this city of Waterdown a beacon of light for all the Muslims living here, and also an example for the rest of Canada and the rest of the North American world. Ameen ya Rabb. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us and pardon us. Ameen ya Rabb. And may Allah raise our status. Ameen ya Rabb. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
So, shoulder to shoulder, together your last prayer. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم أجر غير ممنون فما يكذبك بعد بالدين أليس الله بأحكم الحاكمين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.